Hey, welcome to the Geriatric Millennials. This is Jayme
and Beth.
And we are two oldish, youngish ladies in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that's what we're talking about.
I think we have to talk about it because I'm all about like breaking down the walls and the stereotypes around mental health because they are still very much there.
I know.
Like it's so odd to me that in this day and age with all the research and just like so many like, I mean, eons, but like decades and decades and decades of like research and change and like information, people still like discredit like the fact that like our brains have chemicals and things that happen and it can get out of order, you know, or, you know, there's trauma that happens that causes actual brain chemistry changes that then changes our personality and how we approach the world. It's fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I work with someone and I'm pretty open about like I go to regular counseling. I mean, I really struggle a lot with mental health. And I just like was talking to this person, I'm like, you're not a safe person to talk about. It's like you don't believe it. Like they're very much like they don't need any therapy or help. They're just kind of like that. It's so odd to me. And it's just like, I actually had somebody kind of, I came to someone very earnestly, like this was a long time ago, but I came to like a supervisor and I said, hey, I have too much on my plate. I'm really stressed. I'm getting burnt out. I'm having some issues. I didn't go into details. And I said, I need to step back from some stuff. And they just kind of like, were like, oh yeah, in the moment, like, yeah, no problem. And then afterwards they just made these little like jokes about it. Like it was funny. And I was just like, we're not there, you know, like if I'm with like somebody that knows me and like we've had those conversations and we both whatever and we want to giggle about stuff, okay, but not you randomness. Like I need you to get out of my face. So yeah. Well, and
I don't think that's appropriate.
It's not appropriate at all. Well, and I was thinking about you too because you know you've been going through so much with your family and you just came off like a high level of stress situation.
Yes.
Some of which can cause trauma. I know that sometimes that words can get overused and the meaning starts to lose its value, but like it's a traumatic situation and it can sometimes take time to get over, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I need to make an appointment with my therapist.
Yeah.
Because I have one now. Yeah. And it's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband has one and one of my children has seen one and I'm, you know, this is kind of a recent thing for our family. And when we were trying to find, when we felt like we were, you know, needing someone for my kid, it was kind of a eye-opening experience because there wasn't enough. Like it was difficult to find somebody and there was wait lists for like 9 months and not enough people providing it and so many kids like needing it and not enough people who could do it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually kind of a mental health crisis that we're in. And and so anyway, let's talk about it because I think that people are starting to become more aware and starting to, you know, but it's not at the level it needs to be yet.
No.
But the fact that there is so much more of a demand than there is supply, I mean, it does say something.
Absolutely.
That people are like, wait, I need help. I need to talk to somebody. I need to see somebody who can help with my mental health.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, I think people, I can only speak from my own experience. And, you know, I think therapy, the thing I love most about talking to someone that has like studied the brain, studied how people act together, studied all this crap, is that they can just give you tools and resources on how to process and how to approach situations differently. And I for me, that's been so incredibly valuable, not just for me, for my sake, but for the sake of like my friends, my family, my coworkers, because it has made me a more well-rounded person and able to handle things better and better and better, you know? And I can't imagine what my life would be without having so many, you know, good therapists in my life throughout the years. Like, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. But I think that it is definitely something that is growing in terms of awareness. And, even my husband switched his focus in his school that he's in, because he's becoming a nurse practitioner, and he was doing family practice, and he switched to psych mental health because of the need, and he recognizes and he wants to focus on men and men's mental health specifically, because there is such a stigma, and there is such a cultural ignorance.
Can you imagine denial, how different our world would be if every man went to therapy and actually worked on themselves?
It's very hard to imagine.
I can't, but it would just be so different.
It would be so different.
I mean, not to say that everybody doesn't need it, but there is a huge need, I think, of dudes to recognize what's going on.
Well, become self-aware and recognize there's patterns in your life. Why? And it's and you're not happy about this particular pattern, but it keeps repeating. Let's get to the bottom of that.
I don't know. Sometimes it feels like. I don't know if this is true. This is just my experience. Sometimes it just feels like men are only able to express anger. You know what I mean? It's just and that, again, this is a generalization. It's not all men, but it's just I see men that are hurt sometimes, and it's it comes out as anger. This comes out as anger. And it's just wouldn't it be nice if people could just have the whole array of emotions and not be judged for it?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just that whole thing real men don't cry and stuff like that.
That's what I was going to...
That I grew up in the 80s. I don't know if that was your experience.
I did grow up in the 80s as well. That was also my experience.
No.
I know what you're saying. I'm just thinking
that's how the Belizeans did it.
Well, I cannot speak for how it was in Belize. I was in a very isolated tiny little pocket of Belize.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a Mennonite community, and I will just say that people do not talk about their feelings. They don't show emotion. They do not express emotion in that culture.
Wow.
Outwardly, visually, openly. Jeez. At all. And it's a very patriarchal society and culture. And so there's actually a lot of mental health needs, just anywhere, any group of people, right? But culturally, I think it's been very difficult for a lot of people who struggle because it's not talked about, and it's not available. Help isn't easily available, or it's assumed I don't think it's just this culture, but that I'm speaking of, because even in the culture here, it's kind of the message is that you only, get help, get therapy, seek help for your mental health if you're
in crisis,
a total crisis. It's the last resort, last ditch effort before you give up on whatever it is. And it does not have to be like that. And it should not be like that. It really should not be like that.
No, intervention way before that is so great. And I mean, for mental health, when I'm talking about it, I'm really thinking of depression, anxiety, some of those issues. I mean, there's mental health runs the gamut, right? You have everything from extreme disorders, and you have, I mean, it's amazing how many things are mental health issues.
I know.
But my experience has only been in anxiety and depression, really. And so it's interesting to see my parents, my dad's gone now, but I know he suffered from depression. And it's just I just think, man, what would your life have been like had you gotten intervention, and you didn't self-medicate, and you had opportunities to process through the trauma of your childhood, and just he was fine, but how much better could it have been? Quality of life could have been so much more. My mom, I know she's struggled with different things, and I always think, thanks guys, you could have passed on generational wealth, and instead I got this. But I know she struggled before too, but it can be really hard to find help. And I really think for that boomer generation, it just feels it was no, you just handle your business and you just keep going, and you don't ask for help. And so I think I think my mom's starting to come around. And so I think and hope that that she finds someone that she can work with. And she cracks me up because in the past she's went to somebody, she's I don't like them. Listen, therapy's like dating. You got to find your right match, because not everybody, you're not going to jive with everyone. So you just kind of have to find your person. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping she finds her person, because I would just love for like, what are the generational like stuff to kind of stop.
Yeah.
Like that generational trauma. Like I look back at my grandma, and she had tons of trauma, and like just horrible things happened to her. There was this TikTok trend a little while back, and like this girl was like, oh, like she asked her grandma about how she met her grandpa. And then she's like, oh, grandma, you cute little victim. And it was just like all of these women telling the stories of their grandparents. And the grandma would be like 14 and the grandpa would be like 26. And it was just like all these stories of these young girls being groomed or getting into marriages really young and like having no way out, and just like horrible stories that like this generation of women experienced. And then it wasn't at a time where you could get divorced easily. There wasn't options necessarily for a lot of women had a hard time getting into the workforce, depending on your social, economical, and cultural standing. But it was just very fascinating, and it's just like, I'm like, real rough. Like my grandma's mom had like 12 kids. And it's just like, just wild. Maybe it was my grandpa's. Sorry, family members, if you're listening, please don't though. Turn it off immediately. But it's just like to think about having 12 kids. There's no money, the kids, as soon as they're 18, you got to get them out because there's not enough funds.
Yeah.
And you're just scraping by. You're with some dude that you tolerate, but it's not great. And it's just like, this is my life.
I know. Yeah, there was so many, there still is so many messages that are just baked into our air that we breathe, like in our life and in our culture. And I'm just shaking my head because, just going back to what you said about the messaging for men, real men don't cry, or whatever it was that you said, that messaging for men to not to see emotions as a weakness.
Yes.
Or expressing their emotions as a weakness, and to just stuff those things and not let it out. And not crying is a natural human response for release and healing for, whatever it is that you're experiencing that's triggering that. Like it's a good, healthy thing to be able to do.
Absolutely.
And I want different for my boys. I want them to not have that messaging. And so, I'm trying to do that in my home, but I would love, our culture and our world to be able to also
Embrace
get on board with that, like let's not, because it hasn't helped.
No,
it has not been accurate or been helpful. And, it's sad.
We've been doing this crap for a long time and our world is not better. So let's try something new. Like, let's try radical acceptance of like, oh, emotions matter, like what people are going through matters. And we need to figure out a way to, when stuff happens that's trauma or just bad, like to deal with it, And I think, as I'm saying the word trauma, I think sometimes we just think, oh, like a soldier in war or like somebody that had like horrible abuse as a child. But trauma, like I read this thing where they're talking about like your body doesn't know the difference between levels of trauma. It just knows trauma. So it's like,
I think that's so true.
And it's like, I think sometimes we try to be like, well, my situation's not as bad as their situation. I'm like, your brain don't care. Yeah. You still need to like have healing, and you still need to like, process through that.
Well, yeah. There's somebody in my life that, didn't realize that there was trauma because their experience wasn't abusive, and it wasn't, what you would stereotypically think is traumatizing.
Yeah.
Being beaten or being, sexually assaulted or, these examples that feel that are more, like extreme abuse. And their experience didn't include anything that on that level. And so they didn't realize that they actually had trauma.
Yeah.
And that some of the responses that they were, or the way that they were interacting with the world and the people in their world was related to trauma. And they're like, what do you mean I have trauma? But certain experiences that, you like from childhood, for example, like being really embarrassed in a situation.
Yep.
And then internalizing the message of like, I'm an idiot, or I'm dumb, or I should never speak up, or whatever that was internalized at an early age based on this experience that was actually traumatic. But it wasn't like this person got beat up or something that you would think would be traumatizing. It was like, no, it was just an interaction that other people probably didn't even realize would have been traumatic to this person. You know, like everyone laughing or whatever it was. And then this person internalizing this message as a child. Because when you're a kid, you don't see the big picture. You just have feelings and you're like, oh, this must be the way life is. Or this must be the truth about who I am.
Yeah.
And then you go through your life living as if that's the truth. And it's like,
I think that for me, like, it's that moment when you realize that isn't the truth. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have believed this my whole life. It is a lie. It has impacted how I interact with who I love, my friends, my family, how I see myself, all of those things you're just saying. And the real kicker for me is that, like, so once you know, like it's revealed to you, all of a sudden now you're doing the work on it. But I always say it's like, you know, no matter how much work I do, it's like my mom told me my whole life that the sky was green. And one day I discovered, oh my gosh, the sky is blue. But there's days I still see that tinge of green. And it just, that impact that just keeps with you can just be like such a mind F, because it's just like, why can't I get past this?
Yeah.
And it's just like, because your neurons fired when you were 6 years old and fused, and like that's
you got to reprogram your brain, and it is a process, and it takes intentionality. But the amazing thing is, our brains can be rewired.
Yeah,
we can change those patterns. We can change, you know, the way we think, and what we believe, which impacts how we respond to situations. Because so many times we react based on this trigger that is triggering our trauma response from our childhood. And it's like, oh my gosh, it makes me think, like, what are my kids?
Right? What is the trauma that they're going to have?
To my kids? Like, oh my gosh, I'm sure they're going to need therapy one day. But
well, I think the goal is right. Like, you just try to do the least amount of damage, you know, like, and give them resources and say, like, hopefully embed the tools in them to actually process through things.
Well, and that's, exactly. I want to check in with them and ask them how they're feeling, how they're, you know, and actually talk about it, and hopefully they'll talk to me.
Well, and I think too is, like, you know, part of it is like talk therapy. Part of it is like behavioral therapy. Part of it is like learning all of this stuff. And then sometimes you literally have brain chemistry stuff where you need to be medicated. Yeah. Like, your brain does not produce enough serotonin, dopamine. To full disclosure, obviously we are not scientists. We are not doctors. We are not medical professionals. No. Always like find good resources that are like safe, and fully investigate. But, like, you know, there was a time I've taken like antidepressants before, to varying degrees of success, you know, and I know it's life-saving for some people. You know, it's like the only thing that is there to get them through the day, because it's like, it's your freaking brain chemistry, you know. It's just, it always baffles me. Like, if somebody was diabetic, you know, let's say they have type 1 childhood diabetes, so that we're not judging someone because maybe they're overweight. They just are born with it. Let's pretend they're at what we would call a quote unquote healthy weight, so we all have like a mental picture and not a bias. And we would never tell that kid, like, don't take that insulin. Like, your body can just fight it yourself, or just bootstrap it. You know what I mean? Like, it's so strange to me. Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, I think it's a lot of it is ignorance. It's just honestly just not realizing, not knowing. Like you said, we're not scientists. We don't actually really fully understand like all of the science behind the chemicals in our brain. But we're, you know, there's information is more accessible now, and so I guess I could learn all of that. But it's true. I mean, there is science, there is studies, there is all of this evidence now that we have documented and learned from, in terms of the reality of the chemical and the things that happen in our body that related to like all kinds of levels of like hormones and all. I don't have the language, but like the chemicals, like the levels.
Yeah. It's called a chemical imbalance for a reason.
There we go. Exactly.
Well, and what kills me is, like, you think back, like, historically, especially for women, it's like you're having an episode or something. They were just, she's hysterical,
Mm-hmm.
put her in an institution or,
Mm-hmm.
give her a lobotomy or whatever. And we can go into like the sexism of that and like how probably it was used to keep women in check and blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, there's just so much stigma around it. And like, I think, 10 years ago, I wasn't really sharing with people about mental health stuff because, again, it was just like I thought I would get put into a place where it's just like, oh, well, she's crazy
Mm-hmm.
or she just like whatever. And now I'm like freely telling people like, listen, I'm real low right now.
Yeah.
I'm fine, but don't expect me to hang out because it's just like blah. It's successful to varying degrees. I have some friends that like understand it and get it. I have other people in my life that like, they don't like it when I have my mask down and I'm saying what I'm really feeling because they're like, no, I don't want to know that. Like, I want fun Beth that's just going to come in and be like, da, 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 here's a little joke and like keep it moving. And I'm like, okay, but like, that's not her. Like, that's not today. But whatever. Yeah, this last like, I don't know, the last like 6 months for me has been like really hard.
Yeah.
Like, it got to the point where like, I don't feel depressed, but I know that that's like where I'm at, because it's just like, I've been to the doctor a million times. We're trying to figure out, I'm so fatigued all the time. Like it's very often that I come home from work and I just want to lay on a couch and do nothing. And a few weeks ago, I was like, you have to fold laundry. Because like, first of all, I don't like having clutter, but I have clutter, namely because I have too much stuff. Secondly, because I need a house. I need a garage. A garage would save my life at this point because everything I own is in a small apartment. And it's just like, I just need a garage to put my Christmas lights somewhere so I have space to put other things.
Yeah.
Anywho, but I was like, you need to fold this laundry because for me, it's like my home is always the inside of my brain. So if my home is tidy and I'm keeping it tight and right and all that kind of stuff, I know that like I'm like mentally, I'm in a good place. As soon as I start to see like doom piles and just like, I just will wipe up those crumbs later, I know I'm like not in the best state.
Yeah.
And I had laundry sitting for like 2 weeks and it was all clean and I just needed to fold it. And I was just like, I don't want to fold it. I'm like, we're going to fold it. And so it took me like an hour and a half to like get amped up to do it.
How much laundry was it?
It was like 2.5 loads. Okay. We're not talking like, I mean, I can only imagine the laundry you have to do in your house because you have like 5 people.
Yes. Well, over half of them are doing their own.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good for you. But yeah, I remember when my friends were young and they had babies and I would go to their house and there would just be mounds of laundry because like that's what had to happen because they couldn't.
I've had to revamp the system multiple times to be able to function because it's a lot.
Overwhelming.
It is. It's a lot. I mean, and I say that over half of them, but I would say it's probably in reality under half. It's 2 people. It's 2
and you.
people and me.
Okay.
That's 2 other people.
Better.
So
that's
I guess
better
it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's better. Well, again, this is like 2 loads of laundry. So this is like maybe like folding and like, I take a time to fold and it's like maybe an hour's worth of work to fold it, to put it away, like rearrange a drawer, all that crap. And I laid on my bed and I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm dying. And so I was like, I put on Vanderpump Rules because that's what I do. And I finally got it folded and it was like climbing Everest. And then I was like, I have to put this laundry away. I cannot put it back in the basket folded because it will stay there.
Yeah.
And I'm laying on the bed and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I was literally like, feet go on the floor. Can you lift your hand up? Couldn't do it. And so I was like, okay, I need a distraction. And so I ended up calling a family member because I was like, they like to talk. I can listen and that might help. And it distracted me enough that I was able to put the clothes away. But it took a long time. And then that was my whole Sunday was folding 2 things of clothes. And then after that, I was exhausted. And I'm like, I think it's the most frustrating thing because it's not like I want to be like that. Like, I don't want to feel like low and just, not have hobbies and just sit around and doom scroll and just like numb myself to the world. But at the same time, it's like, that is literally where my brain is. And it's not even like, people are like, you should go for a walk. That's not even a like thought in my head. Like,
well, it's really hard to like pull that motivation out of somewhere. Like, where is it supposed to come from?
The bucket
if you're
is
not
dry.
feeling it,
yeah,
then where is it going to come from?
And, somebody was saying, when I say that, it's always a TikTok, but, but a lot of it is like, they said, it's not motivation. It's what is that thing that you have? Discipline. It's discipline. You just got to be disciplined and do XYZ. And I'm like, XYZ for me is like, I am disciplined to brush my effing teeth so I'm not a beast. Like that is as much as I can do today. I was telling someone like I stopped doing my nighttime beauty routine because I just couldn't. I was just like, I could not. It was too much to do. And I'm like, you're just putting serums on your face. How is that too much? I'm like, it just is. And so I think that's the hardest thing about mental health is that number one, there's not a solution that works for everybody. It's very like you are a la carte in your own stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times it's like, for me at least, it's not just depression. It's not just this. It's not just that. It's, there's layers of things.
Yeah.
And to try and sort through that in a real way is so hard. And, it can be really embarrassing to be like, hey, I didn't go anywhere this weekend because I was feeling like trash. And so I rotted on my couch because it was the only way I could get through to the next week. It's just like, that's not a cute look. But anyway, so I think it's just really frustrating. And I just wish people were more open and honest about it because I've talked about it. And then like years later heard a friend like, oh, I was going through stuff too. And they didn't say anything. I'm like, well, wouldn't that have been, I mean, not that everybody should, because it's like, it's hard to cop to it.
Well,
it's
it
hard
needs to be
deal with
a
it.
safe person.
Yeah. But it's also nice to be like, you're not in it by yourself. So I'm just telling anybody right now that's struggling, you're definitely not in it by yourself. And, like, it might not be perfect, but I really do feel like there's always a way through it. It just might not be what you want it to be. I keep waiting for like the magic thing of like, Beth, all you have is you just have low vitamin D and one hormone off, and we're going to give you 2 pills and you're going to wake up every day feeling like Jayme. I know that you go through stuff too, but just like wanting to dance, you know. I have another friend that's very passionate about different things. And I just look at them like, how do you get excited about life, man? So weird. It is a foreign concept to me.
Yeah.
Like, anyway. So that's how my brain is right now. It's just like, whatever. It's beige. I always say like, I'm in my beige era where everything's just like, meh.
Yeah.
And like,
is your shirt beige?
Yeah. It's how I live my life, Jayme. Just beige. Like it's just the weirdest thing. It's just the weirdest thing. So
well, thank you for sharing. I think that is a really important message for all of us to hear is that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And, I think there's seasons too. For
absolutely.
For different things. And
well, I know you struggle more in the winter just because there's no sun.
Yeah. I mean, that is a big part of it. Yes, for sure.
And it's cold.
Yeah.
Like it's instantly a little bit downer for you.
Yes, it is. It is. And I bought one of those lights finally.
Good.
But then I couldn't really use it. It was really dumb because what you have to do is sit still in front of it for 30 minutes in the morning. Who's got time for that? Well, I don't sit still. When do I sit still other than when I'm sitting here talking to you or, when I'm driving? Really, I don't. And I guess, okay, yes, you got to make time for that. But I got to make time to exercise. And then I got to make time to like drive my kids to school and figure out all of the household stuff that needs to be done in the morning. I'm already getting up at 5:15. I don't have time. I'm not getting up at 4:15 to sit in front of a lamp.
But maybe you just put the lamp next to the Peloton. Even though you're supposed to sit still, at least you'd still get some energy.
It's not going to do it. It has to be like, you have to be like within 12 inches. I don't know how to make that. Maybe I just need like a certain like, maybe I could do it that way, like a stand.
And it's just shining bright right on you.
Okay, that could maybe work. I didn't think of that, Beth.
You're welcome.
But I don't know how do I need an attachment, something that will like an arm
Amazon
that I could attach to my Peloton with this light that would shine in my eyeballs in the winter because I did have it on where I do my makeup. Well, I'm doing that in 10 minutes. It's just not long enough. And I know it's like, well, 10 minutes is better than nothing, but no, it's not. It's actually not enough to actually do anything.
You just carry it, like get a battery operated and just carry it around with you.
I don't think that's realistic either.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying solutions.
I know. Thank you. I don't know. You know what I think the solution actually is that I live in Hawaii.
Okay. Jet setter. Well, I'm going to tell you this. I don't have like 5 tips and tricks for beating depression because that's not realistic. But a couple of the strategies that I've had recently is that just help my mental health overall is number one, when I find like a pinch point in my life, something that just irks me or is causing issues, I find a solution and put it in my Amazon cart. So for example, I was tired of cleaning out egg from a pan using a sponge because then the egg gets on the sponge and I don't like it.
And then you can't get it out of the sponge.
And I don't like using brushes because same thing. And I saw this girl on TikTok talking about some scraper, and I did not go to TikTok shop, but I just was like, they got one at Pampered Chef. She's like, I've had this for 20 years. Go on Amazon. I found these little scrapers that you can just scrape the gunk off and then wash it. I'm like, okay, this is a $5 fix. Thank you.
Can you put that in my Amazon cart?
Absolutely. The other thing, at nighttime, I like to watch I like to watch a movie or show on my iPad because I'm an iPad adult.
Yes.
And I would have it in bed with me, but the iPad just keeps falling down because I'm just holding it up with pillows. Your girl got this thing that attaches to her bed.
Yes.
And then it like floats the iPad above me, and it looks ridiculous.
Who cares?
Best thing I've ever gotten, because I just lay there and I can watch my show and I can scroll on my TikToks on my phone while my iPad's playing a movie, and I'm like, I'm a happy little kid right now.
Yeah.
And so it's just been like little things like that. It's like, I hate chopping onions, and I found this thing that just like, you just put the onion in and you like clamp over it and it like pushes it through a little grate and then chops it for you. And I was just like, perfect. Now I don't have to chop onions.
Yeah, it's the little things.
I mean, it sounds silly, but like some of that stuff is huge. Like I ended up having to buy a vacuum cleaner because I did not want to vacuum because I hate cords. It was heavy, all of this stuff. And so it was a pinch point, and I bought a vacuum, and it changed the way it made it easier for me to keep my home clean, which helped my mental health and just like helped me feel more whatever. And
yeah,
again, I mean, everybody, like, there's all things. Oh, go out in the sunshine. Okay, touch grass, find a hobby, be involved with friends, all these different things. But sometimes it comes down to that you just need to buy more underwear so that you can go 2 weeks without washing clothes. It can make a huge difference in your life.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that tip.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that like sometimes it's so hard to, like for me, the big picture right now is unfathomable. Like I can't figure it out. I cannot figure out like how to live my life in a way that like is every day feeling the way I want to feel. But I'm like, I can in like the minutia of life fix things with that then ends up like making the bigger picture better. So
I think that's really smart. And I like that. I like all of the little things you mentioned too, because it's true. It's little things. It's like a daily or, a weekly thing that just is irritating. And if there's something that exists that can make it better, like,
yeah. It makes
a difference.
It makes a difference. Well, and like I get massive anxiety, especially, we've talked about this, especially when I go to events and I have to get dressed because I don't have a big closet of fancy clothes because I don't like fancy clothes. I love fancy clothes in theory. I follow all these like TikTokers and like Instagram girlies that are like, they have the cutest clothes. I would love to have their wardrobe. I want nothing to do with trying to build that wardrobe.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was doing a wedding. And so I had so much anxiety around it. I was looking for dresses. I was like freaking out.
I'm really proud of you for doing this in advance, by the way, and not
Right?
the day of or the day before.
Baby steps.
Good job.
Because what I would do normally is I'd wait till the last minute. I'd bring something I didn't even know if would go together. I'd put it on. I look crazy, like at my grandpa's funeral, and with my crop pants and my nylon socks and
then you just
weird
feel
shoes,
awkward
the whole time, feeling horrible. And so I pulled the dress out. I tried the dress on. I put the shoes on. I took a picture of myself and I sent it to a friend and I said, "Is this appropriate?"
Yeah.
And it made such a difference because like, yeah, it's perfect, no problem. And then I could just like, that anxiety was like gone now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's little things like that really helps on that side of things too.
I will say for me, going back to, just as an example, winter season or when it's dark or whatever, having something to look forward to on my calendar, it doesn't have to be a big trip necessarily, but always having something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've seen your calendar. It's impressive. But I mean, you look forward to stuff like, I think that's really cool. Cause like, I already know you're looking forward to Dance Congress for next year.
Oh, 100%.
Like, and I feel like that keeps you motivated and going,
yes.
And I think that's a huge thing of life is like, I was talking to my friend's husband who's a paramedic, this was years ago, and they were talking about how a lot of people, there's this thing where a lot of people pass away at holidays. And, multitude of reasons, but he was saying, a lot of times that people just lose their desire to thrive. And I was just like, that is like a huge fear of mine because it's like, it's not just living, it's thriving because like anybody can be alive
Yeah.
but not living. And I think that that's the place I always get nervous about, because like, I don't want to just rot. You know, we joke about rotting and stuff, and like it's a TikTok trend and whatever, but it's like, it can be a really real thing where all of a sudden it's like, okay, I spent 2 days in bed doing nothing, you know, and I compare, you know, what is that? Comparison is the death of joy or something like that. I'm bad at it. I mean, I see people's highlights reel, but I also talk to people in real life. Like, what did you do this weekend? And I'm always just like, oh my gosh, they did like so many things that I think are so cool. And then I'll take a step back. I'm like, Beth, that's like basic living. They went to a farmer's market and did brunch. That is not like, they did not go to Paris.
Yeah.
They did not get proposed to at the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
They are not like deep sea fishing in Alaska. You know, they didn't win $1 million. They're doing very basic like life stuff. Like, you could do that too. And I was like, okay. So it's just like, I think it's just,
I mean, I would do both of those things with you.
yes. Well, and I just think it's finding, it's really hard to find your peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is finding friends that can support you, or, you know, if you can't find a friend, you got to buy one. I told my counselor that the other day. I'm like, listen, there's not very many people I feel safe with, and one of them I pay, which is you. Just like, I'm like, that kind of sounds rude, like, but it's true. Like, sometimes you just have to like,
True.
that investment in yourself.
Well, and that brings it back kind of to what we started off talking about, which was therapy and the difference that it can make and the benefit that it can have. And I think that is such an important investment.
Absolutely.
That is totally worth it. So if any of you listening are considering it, we both highly encourage you to take that step and find a therapist.
Yeah. Find someone you can talk to. And the beautiful thing is too, there's lots of free resources. You know, like, therapy can be expensive, especially if you don't have insurance, but there's hotlines, there's like local organizations, and it's just so critical.
Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast and would like to support our show, you can share episodes with your friends and family, follow us on Instagram at the Geriatric Millennials, or leave us a positive review and rating, all which help us to grow. Our theme music was created by the Finley Ghost, so check out their latest album now. Thank you so much.